there, my name's Alex and I run the Autism Acceptance page on Facebook. Obviously, if you're seeing this on Facebook, you will know that. If you're seeing it on YouTube, I will drop a link in the comment section where you can go along and check out my page. I cover a wide range of topics from a neurodiversity standpoint, autism related. So if that's something you're interested in, then go and give it a look. Today I want to cover some work from Donna Williams, and this is the first part of a little mini-series because this topic takes some depth, and this is about taking the straws off the camel's back as far as helping someone with autism, because autism is an information processing disorder. And a lot of people don't know how to take the straws off the camel's back, and this is a little guide on what to do. So if you've got a camel who's finding it hard to walk under the weight of the straws on its back, the easiest way to make it easier for the camel to walk is to take as many straws off its back as possible. Management is about training the camel to walk or appear to walk while carrying the straws. Care is about taking the straws off the camel's back. The two can work together. Trying to make systems function when they are buckling under the weight of other burdens is a drain on everyone's energy, and success, if any, will be slow. Too many autism techniques, therapies and treatments spend their time building up the camel's muscles to carry what is more than his share of straws, or to teach the camel to act as if he's carrying less than he actually is. It makes more sense to take these straws off, and then the camel's job will be easier, and so will those caring for or working with the camel. To take the straws off the camel's back, you have to do two things. One is to identify them, and the second is to know how to remove them or where to go to find someone who can. Identifying the straws. Problems of control, problems of tolerance, problems of connection. These are the three hypothetical straws on this hypothetical camel's back. So there are several things that can go wrong to cause each of these problems, and there are solutions to some of these things, or places to start looking for these solutions. What follows is a journey through cause and solutions. The role of information processing. So all kinds of messages come into the brain via the senses, including the muscles, the joints, and the balance centres involved in movement, as well as body messages relating to emotional sensations. These incoming messages are decoded in order to make them possible to interpret. To do this, the left and right brain hemispheres and all their departments have to be able to relay messages efficiently between different parts of the brain. Information overload. Information overload can happen if you're too slow to keep up with the rate in which information is coming in. This is like one train being late, causing all the others to be late too. Information overload can happen because your brain doesn't filter out the same range of generally irrelevant information as other people's do. This is like having one whole jar of peanut butter but having 100 sandwiches to spread. In each case, information overload means that the scarce resources get spread too thinly, and that the brain calls a range of involuntary compensations into play in order to manage this. Compensations that generally don't make much sense to non-autistic people whose brains have never required them. What follows, Donna says, is her own simplified version of how she experienced meaning and significance when in a state of overload, when her ability to process incoming information and respond to that information had become very slowed down and inefficient. Literal meaning, making literal meaning. In order to make literal meaning of information that has come in through the senses, it has to be decoded and interpreted. For example, my eyes might pick up a whole load of light pulses that have bounced off things in the room around me. I don't experience this part with awareness. This raw information is relayed to areas of the brain which will decode it. The decoded information might now be something like white and flat and thin and square with a smooth surface. At this point, that means a lot more than nothing, but it still doesn't mean much at all. It doesn't tell me what I'm looking at, just what it looks like. At this point, this decoded information needs to be interpreted. The decoded information, white and flat, thin and square, with a smooth surface, become interpreted into the recognition that what has been seen is a sheet of paper. At this point, I know what this thing looks like and what it is, but there is still no interpretation of what, if anything, to do about it. Without processing further still, there is little or no thought about what has been experienced. From meaning to significance. At this point, I may know I have experienced a sheet of paper, but haven't yet understood the significance of this. I don't yet know what, if anything, to do about this experience. This deeper processing for significance requires further internal messages to be sorted and relayed. Significance tells me what to do about paper, i.e., I need some of this to write on, or this is not what I'm looking for. When something is processed for significance, this would usually drive action and or expression. And again, there are many more messages that need to be relayed efficiently for significance to result in action or expression. This is when realization of significance goes from I need some of that to write on to my actually reaching for it and picking it up. The relaying of information for processing can be inefficient in a whole variety of ways. The following are just some of these ways. Types of inefficient processing. Sorry, wrong address. Messages can be sorted efficiently so that they are relayed badly. This is like messages can be sorted inefficiently so that they are relayed badly. This is like putting a call through to the wrong number or the next door neighbour's house instead of your own house. These are what I call misfires. Some examples of these in my own life have been where I've come up with words or names that have been similar, shape, pattern, or rhythm to the one I am trying to recall without being similar in meaning. I've had this trouble with names such as Margaret and Elizabeth because they seem to have the same feel and seem similar to me. In the same way, I've said things like, I want my shoes when I'd meant I want my jacket, and been surprised to get the thing I apparently asked for. Sentences like, I'm trying very hard, come out, I'm trying very difficult. I have known I'm having a problem to do with my body meaning messages, but find myself going off to the toilet because I felt cold, or putting on a coat because I felt hungry, or eating or drinking because I felt full. I have also been the one to leave my own house because I know someone was meant to be leaving, but got it wrong about who it was and how to get them out. I have meant to look at something, but the message came out wrong and I've gawked suddenly into the opposite direction. I am always pushing doors that I mean to pull open and pulling at the doors I meant to push. I have felt glad to see someone, but instantly ignored them. Another experience that felt like a mixture between messages going to the wrong address and getting cross lines is to do with fluffy people causing me lemons. Fluffy people, those who are very self-exposed, without image or facade, and emotionally vulnerable, cause me lemons. Being around them or involved with them causes lemons because it triggers a sensation that feels exactly how eating lemons makes me feel, though the taste isn't there. The response in my mouth and neck and muscles is the same. These people cause me sour taste that is extreme and of the same type that lemons cause me when eaten, and it's not easy to put up with. Sorry, it's late. Messages can be sorted, all right, but take a long time to be relayed. This is like not putting birthday calls through until after the birthday has passed. Non-firings are life with a rain check. For me, they are fees of the ability to understand and feel the reward of interaction or emotions. As a child, this was consistently how life was for me, so I appeared as though I didn't feel pain or discomfort, didn't want help, didn't know what I was saying, didn't listen and didn't watch. By the time some of these sensations, responses and comprehensions were decoded and processed for meaning and personal significance, and I'd access the means of responding, I was 15 minutes, one day, a week, month, even a year later from the context in which the experience happened. At the same time, I was taught to act as though I had processed what had happened, to act like I had a life. The first problem of delayed processing had robbed me. The second problem of being made to act as though I had no processing problem was like rubbing my nose in it. At school and later university, I sat for hours not understanding more than the occasional word and listening to what mostly sounded like gibberish and watching meaningless face-pulling, facial expressions and actions. I'd scan volumes of largely meaningless print, and my body generally seemed without hunger or tiredness, cold or discomfort. In situations that should have caused me effect, I generally registered none. Even though I learnt to display stored copies of what was normal and expected, in situations I was meant to enjoy, I usually felt indifferent. In situations that were meant to provoke me, I generally felt nothing. Though all sorts of disembodied niggles were happening, I mostly didn't know where they were coming from or what they meant. Sooner or later I'd wake up with a sense of realization without knowing what I'd realized. Information that I didn't know I processed would be triggered by questions and actions by others, and I'd have no idea where the understanding had come from or how it got there, and it would often be wholly disembodied from the context from which it had originated. Unprocessed, undistinguishable sensations of pure, unprocessed emotions. that were probably meant to be connected to the information that was not yet fully processed too, would often suddenly flood me in a heap after their immediate context had gone, leaving me sensorily and emotionally overloaded to painful extremes. These felt almost like attacks or fits, after which they were often a time of growth, as though these exorcisms were some kind of bulk processing. The effect of these persistent, severe processing delays on my life made people respond to me as anything from stupid to disturbed, mad and eccentric, and the local amusement. For me, the world seemed basically incomprehensible, unrewarding, and purely a place in which to pass time. All the realizations, connections, and effects that were meant to reward me for interaction and experience were so delayed and out of context that continuity was a shambles and a myth. The attachment that was meant to flow from it became nothing but a well-trained facade, which I had only theoretical and disembodied understanding, which made me feel under glass and forever external. I think we have crossed line. Messages can be stored all right and put through quickly, but redundant information insufficiently filtered out. This is like putting through a call complete with cross lines and background static. For much of my childhood, the air was full of charged air particles, sparkles, that most people's brains filter out as meaningless information. Not only did my brain not do me this favour, but these sparkles were much more active. They swirl around crazily in the air currents and abundance, and in the foreground than anything else I was seeing. This made everything else not only irrelevant and background, but meant that it took a lot of conscious mental effort and energy to attend to. The same happened with my hearing, and I was often more tuned into the white noise and the sound of silence than I was to the sort of noises other people seem to easily tune into and process quickly. Similarly, because things that were meant to be tuned out weren't. These things were all competing for processing when they shouldn't have been. I was jumping between processing the white of the page as well as the print, the flicker of the light and shadow as well as the objects themselves, the sounds of the people moving about, in between syllables of words being said at the time, the rustle of clothing and the sound of my own voice. Sorry, your line has been disconnected. Messages can be sorted all right, some of them put through quickly enough, and redundant information sufficiently filtered out. But the relay of further connecting messages is inefficient. This is like putting calls through in gibberish, telling jokes but leaving the punchline out, or putting through a call about something important but then jamming the phone lines so that the recipient can't contact anybody else to tell them the news. I first started intentionally trying to squeeze meaning out of language when I was about 10. At this time, I knew that words were theoretically meaningful based on previous experiences, but as I heard them again, their meaning was as elusive as ever. The clarity was fine, and I would play about with their shape and the space between syllables and words, but it just didn't go anywhere. Later, the category the word belonged to would be triggered, so I come up with all these opposites, or its possible similes, or the words that rhyme with it, or that had similar shape. But the word or sentence that had triggered these responses basically remained gobbledygook until the moment passed and it was all unimportant. Then it sometimes eventually stunk in, by which time I generally didn't care nor attend to its comprehension. The same is true of touch, where I could describe tactile sensations quite exactly and make all sorts of associations in memory with related textures or sensations. But what I actually felt in terms of personal pleasure or pain, or how I should or wanted to respond to it, or what it meant for any further experience, just didn't connect at the time. Though its processing was often delayed and responses triggered later, sometimes. Later, sometimes demonstrating that processing had occurred at a delayed unconscious level. These sorts of experiences meant that the usual sort of curiosity didn't happen with me because I generally hadn't made enough connections in the context in which an experience had happened for my mind to form questions, let alone drive actions to get answers. I also find life a sort of hit and miss thing because only a limited number of connections happened in a complete way, and those I generally repeated over and over. The rest seemed sort of like one-off accidents or occasions. This also made usual attachment more to do with whether other people wanted me about than whether I had formed any appreciation appreciation in context, comprehension of the experience I had with people. I did, however, learn to respond to certain cues where I was meant to have comprehended, been curious, or formed attachments, but these were mechanical and performed actions for which there was no internal feedback, so they mostly seemed stilted, forced, or repetitive. In the following chapters, I will talk about each of these types of problems of connection, problems of tolerance, and problems of control, and give some advice about what can be done about these problems. So look out for my follow-on videos. I hope you found this useful. Love and peace to you all. Remember, you're stronger than your struggles. Bye for now.